One of the points I'd like to make is that from a wrong premise will come a wrong conclusion. So if you start a question with a wrong premise, then it's hardly a good idea to carry on until it's been fully explained or not explained. I'm a little bit confused at the idea that secularism is to blame for the invention of pornography, rape, and all the other bad things in the world. There's been 3,000 years of Christianity and Judaism and Islam, and I think you ought to consider that perhaps you have a lot more to answer for than secularism. One of the wrong premises about secularism is not divorced from life. It simply says that religion should be divorced from the state, and that people should have freedom of religion and freedom from religion within a state that is neutral, which I said in my initial introduction. But I would at some stage like to come back to the family and the breakdown of the family, because that's a very important issue on which secularism has a very different perspective. And unfortunately, the vast majority of people are still totally committed to the idea of the family, and I think that needs to be challenged.
Okay, and Nasreen?
So a couple of points. One thing to what the brother was saying, I think he raises an important point about this issue of how women are seen within society. You know, people say that under the burqa, Muslim women disappear, but under liberalism, many women are physically disappearing under their clothes. Because what you have is a situation of young girls starving themselves in order to fit a particular body image. Last night there was a show called it was called The Beast, the Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, the ugly side of prejudice. Talking about the obsessive compulsion that many young girls have with the way that they look. And it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that capitalism continues to propagate this ideal that women should have a certain body ideal in order to keep the cashier tills of the beauty and fashion industries ringing. It's unacceptable. And Islam says it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that a woman should view their looks as their passport to success. It's unacceptable that society should rank the woman based upon how attractive she is, rather than her merits, her intelligence, and her skills. Islam says that it is unacceptable to accept any of these things. So if people want to label Islam backward and oppressive because of this, then let them do so. Because as Muslim women and as Muslims, we have no apology to make about the way that Islam views the woman.
I'd like to come back on that, because I think that is a total misrepresentation of secularism. Secularism... Hang on. You know, this is the trouble with some of you Muslims. You just don't want to listen.
Alright, keep it down, keep it... Alright, guys, let's keep it down, yeah? Let's hear a point.
Several of the points, several of the answers, several of the questions have confused secularism with today's politics, conservatism and capitalism. And I have to tell you, from my experience, you are far more likely to find people who are hostile to religion, who are also hostile to capitalism and the evils of commercialism, and the two are in no way comparable. And if that's what you think, then I think you need to open your eyes to the real situation and look at where some of these competitive attitudes come from and have been sustained throughout society. And remember, there was a mention of the church in Russia. The church in Russia, the Orthodox Church in Russia, colluded for centuries with the Tsarist and feudal societies that eventually resulted in the revolution. So it's hardly surprising that the backlash that happened and the consequent resurgence of Christianity was totally confusing to today's religionists.
Okay.
I just want to say, like, some of your comments are embarrassing, really. I'd just like to ask you a question, because like, I completely agree with your view of, like, the Western view of pornography and the ideals of the breakdown of the family unit. But I don't feel like I completely appreciate that the Western view is not perfect in any way. But then I'd like to ask whether, like, I'm sure you all agree that Islam isn't perfect either. So, like, the like repression of not repression, the, like, not allowing through laws and rules these things to take place. Do you believe that is the most effective way of dealing with it, as opposed to educating in a different way? It's not the best articulate.
Thank you. And I'll just pass it to you.
Thank you for your question. I think the question here is, how do we bring certain, I think these are common interests, common outcomes that we have, whether we're Christian, whether we're secular, whether we're liberal, certain outcomes that we want from society, which is the respect of women, preventing abuse of women, preventing violence, making sure that the family unit is healthy, and the rights of children are looked after. These are common objectives. But as with anything, like, I keep coming to this issue that you cannot have your cake and eat it. Yeah? You might want to do whatever you want, but that's going to have repercussions upon society. So as with anything that is a crime within the society, be it theft, be it murder, be it abuse, be it violence, in order to prevent these things from happening, you have to have laws. You have to educate, but you also have to have laws to bring it to light. So what Islam says is that if you want to have, like, a strong family unit, then you need to regulate the relationships between men and women. And this is why Islam looks harshly at adultery, and it looks harshly at relationships outside of marriage, because it views the breakdown of marriage through adultery as barbaric. You know, they say that the punishments for fornication and adultery in Islam are barbaric, but what do you think it causes to the family unit when a man or a woman betrays their spouse and betrays their family? So Islam says that you regulate the relationships, the dress code, the fact that men and women cannot have free relationships with one another, the fact that intimate relations is only within marriage. These are all things geared towards creating the healthy family unit, which is vital for the well-being of society. We know the problems, isn't it, of family breakdown. Cameron talks about it all the time, of broken Britain, binge drinking, you know, drug addiction, antisocial behaviour, depression within children, self-harm within children, all the knock-on effects on society. We say, no, you cannot have these problems in society, and if that means me having to limit my choices as an individual for the sake of society, that is Islam's philosophy. And in the long run, the quality of life of individuals is also improved in terms of their safety, their family life, and in terms of their happiness and tranquility within society.
Yep.
I've got a question from Sue, which you can answer with me. You know, we live in a liberal society today, yeah? I'm a Muslim woman, I live in this society. I have no choice, but I came here to work and I'm living here. I work a job in Java. What I'm asking you is, how do you view Muslim woman in society? And when the demonizing of the woman is going to stop on the media and in the country? Will it stop when all the Muslim women become naked and walking in the street? Then will it stop? Or is the liberal society going to do something about it? That's my question.
Well, I think it'll stop when all women are allowed freedom and equality. Not just Muslim women.
No, you're free. I am free.
You think? Well, either you're free or you're not free. I mean, which is it to be? I mean, which question do you want me to ask?
No, this is what I'm saying. You said that you want all the women to be free. We are free.
I want you to have the choice of freedom.
No, I want you to answer me that stop stop demonizing the Muslim woman.
Stop what? Sorry. Can you?
She says stop demonising the Muslim woman.
I haven't demonised. I have in no way demonised Muslim women.
The society.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. They generally speaking, I would say the British population find full face covering offensive and intimidating and unnecessary. And I think they have a right to think that.
Thank you.
You don't have freedom. If you go a while back before that man stood up and said what he said, he said something about how something about prostitution, how the state should provide prostitutes with protection.
We should allow them to protect themselves by the way they work.
So are you trying to say prostitution is okay?
I say there are lots of worse forms of prostitution.
So you need to answer the question.
I think if you hark back,
Guys, can we keep it down?
if you hark back to what I said that women should have a choice of if, when and who to have sex with and under what conditions. Now, if they choose to take their payment in cash at the time, act by act, rather than take the dependency of marriage or one-night stands or boyfriends paying for meals or whatever, women, whilever women are dependent, there will be all sorts of ways of paying them, right? And prostitution is only one. The problems of prostitution are that it is driven underground and it is driven into the hands of pimps and criminals. And the reason it is driven underground is because it is made illegal for women, and women are harassed, and they are harassed even by the enforcers, such as some police.
Okay, Sue.
And that is no way to treat their problems. Why should they be harassed? They should be allowed to protect themselves from violence and disease.
Okay, Sue.
Are you trying to say that if
Sorry, sister,
freely
just-
selling her body, then that's okay?
She's not selling her body, she's selling sex.
Okay, sorry, Sue. I'm just gonna sorry, guys, can you keep it down, yeah?
If you think
Sue, it's not your turn. Sorry, it's not your turn. Sue, it's not your turn.
If you
I'm sorry,
think that
I'm
all
gonna give it to
women's
Dr.
bodies
Sue.
is sex, then that is a very, very small interpretation is what a whole woman.
Sorry,
If a
Sue.
whole woman is sexuality, then that shows a lot about this audience.